Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar from us all at Deloitte and Freeman Media. My name is David Morgan, Energy and Resources Lead at Deloitte, and I'm excited we're working with Freeman Media News once again as the headline sponsor for this year's awards. These awards are really important to Deloitte and the sector. We're committed to supporting and showcasing excellence in energy to not only the industry but also to wider business and the general public. The nominations that I hope that you're all working hard on will showcase the projects that have really made an impact that matters and will provide best practice examples for the future of the industry. But regardless of the size of the project, it's the challenges that are overcome and the successes and the journey that you got to get there that we want to hear about. I hope this session will help craft your success stories into an award-winning entry, and we've got some top people here sitting around the table with me to help you with that. We'll soon be hearing top tips from Elizabeth Wilson, who's the chair of the judging panel, and then previous winner Claire Marshall, Communications Manager at Transpower. And finally, Neil Wembridge from Energy News will also fill us in on some final entry details. So I look forward to seeing you at the awards in August, and best of luck with all of your entries. I'll now pass you over to Mike Cockin from Deloitte, who will run us through the webinar's housekeeping.
Thanks, David. Hi everyone, I'll quickly let you know some of the housekeeping for today's session. You are on mute, so if you have any questions, please email it to energyawards@freemanmedia.co.nz. We'll do the best to answer as many questions as possible at the end, but if we don't, send through those questions anyway, and the team will reply as soon as possible. We're going to be recording this session, so you can share it later or watch it back. And just a final reminder that the deadline to get your nomination in is 5 p.m. on Monday, the 21st of May. So now, without further ado, I'll pass you over to Elizabeth Wilson, our chair of the judging panel, for her top tips for your entry. Elizabeth.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks, David, for that introduction. I'm Elizabeth Wilson, and I, as Mike and David mentioned, I'm chair of the judging panel for this year. I've been on the judging panel for 8 years now, and the judging process is one that I always look forward to, and it's one that's always a very enjoyable process for me. And I think probably, well, I'm sure, for all of the other members of the judging panel. Why is it enjoyable? Two things stand out for me in particular. One is it is a real privilege and totally inspiring to read about so many amazing stories of excellence. Excellence in innovation, excellence in leadership, excellence in projects, big, small, all well executed and all making a significant difference. Excellence in corporate stewardship, people, community, the environment. The second thing that stands out for me in the judging process is the process itself. We're a panel of 8 judges. We're all equally passionate about the energy sector. We bring diverse perspectives, and as a result, there's always robust discussion and debate. Just to give you a bit of an overview of our judging process, we have a number of judging subcommittees, and each subcommittee is responsible for the in-depth review and analysis of particular award category entries. They bring that back to the full judging panel, and the full panel then has a discussion and makes the decisions around finalists and winners. Sometimes, some years, there might be an obvious standout winner for a particular award, but more often than not, and this is the judge's dilemma, it's one that I always say, well, isn't this a nice problem to have? There's any number of entries that we receive that could each by themselves be worthy of an award finalist. And that's where the hard judging decisions come in, and that's where the discussions and challenge that we as a judging panel have to bring. And that's at the subcommittee level, but it's again also at the final judging panel level. And that leads me to today's webinar and what you can do as an award entrant to help us, the judges, in those discussions so that you give your entry the best chance for consideration as one of the finalists. So the first tip that I've got, it's an old one and it's a good one. Read the instructions. How often have you heard that before? I'm sure you'll hear it again. One of the biggest judging challenges that we have is comparing, even within a single award category, a range of entries that can span quite different subject matter. And that's where it's important that we have the information in your entry that allows us to assess it against all the other entries with a common framework and set of criteria. And that's where the instructions in the award entry form comes into play. A lot of thought and has been given over the years, and from including the judges, as to how that entry form should be designed. The idea is that we want to help you as much as possible focus your entry on what it is that we, as the judges, will be looking at when we are assessing and comparing a whole number of entries. So one part of that is thinking carefully about what award you want to enter into. Sometimes that's obvious, but other times an entry might possibly go into one or two different award categories. And sometimes we find ourselves in a situation where we think, wouldn't it have been great for that entry to have been in a different category because we could be giving different weight to different criteria in that other category. Doesn't happen often, but if you do have any questions or concerns about what category to enter your project or your initiative in, then I'd really recommend that you have a chat to Neil and his team. My next tip, and I can't overemphasize this one enough really, is tell your story well. Tell it in a way that's clear, it's accurate, it's to the point, keep it succinct. Focus on the questions that we've highlighted in the entry form. And one way that I think is probably quite a useful way to think about it is think about what your elevator pitch is. Tell us what it is that you think makes your entry a winning entry. What makes it special? What makes it stand out? More importantly, why that is the case. We don't want to get just a high-level sales pitch. We do want to know what your key points are, but we need you to back it up. Give us the evidence that demonstrates each of those key points that you're making and that you're telling us about why your entry is the winning entry. Be specific, but also be succinct. Don't give us so much detail that we end up having to work it out for ourselves. We might just not get it, or at least we might not get it in the way that you intend. We do want the detail, but we also need you to focus us on what is it, the key points, and why that detail is relevant. Keep your entry targeted. Another way that I always think is a good way to think about it and approach how you might think about your entry is think about the level of detail that you might put in a board paper for your organisation. So you're giving us enough information to allow the judges to understand what you're saying and to test the points that you make. And like any good board paper, it needs to avoid repetition. Make every word count. And once again, that's where the request for information that you'll find in each of the sections of the entry form should help you and to get the structure right. So to sum that up, a good story, well told. And part of the telling of that story is also to tell us what success means for your organisation, for your entry. as judges, we don't have any preconceived ideas of what success might be. We know that success can take many different shapes, and part of that is success is specific to an organisation, to an initiative, to a project, to a person, and everyone is different. So we need you to make that real for us, real for your entry and as part of your story. What did or does success look like? What were the challenges? How did you deal with these? And how does that demonstrate excellence? So those are the main tips that I wanted to share with you today. And I know Claire has also got a number of tips, and I'll hand over to her now.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I'm Claire Marshall, Acting Communications Manager at Transpower. We're the National Grid owner and operator, as most of you will know, and we keep New Zealand connected. A lot of people think of us as an engineering company or as just another monopoly state-owned enterprise, but we're really much more than that. We care about New Zealand, we're here for New Zealand, and we're really passionate about the role that we play in the industry. And because of this, we're continually trying new and better ways of doing what we do, and we're always learning and improving. Why do we enter the awards each year? Well, there's a couple of good reasons. Obviously, we love it when we receive the Deloitte Energy Excellence Awards, but it's much more than that. Having these awards to aim for each year is a really good exercise in stopping to reflect on the good work that we've done. It's easy to get caught up in your busyness of your day-to-day work, and when you do that, you forget exactly what's been achieved or how far you've come from, say, this time last year. So we found it's a good motivator to record the work that you've done and to keep up that focus amongst the teams on remembering how we're continually improving in the work that's been done. It's also a good record to have on file. We've used the information from our entries on all sorts of channels internally as well as it going public too. And we found that the whole process of writing an entry often digs up some really good insights, feedback, have some conversations and make some new relationships internally and externally, which can have flow-on effects and result in even better work in the business as usual space. And that's whether you're a winning entry or not. So obviously it's great to win, but there's benefits whether you do or you don't. And then in terms of the after effects of being a finalist or winner, well, definitely you see increased pride and morale from the teams involved. Everyone loves having their good work externally validated. We also love to see when our service provider and partner organisations are recognised, as that benefits everyone in the wider work that we do for New Zealand. I've got some top tips for writing an entry. Elizabeth covered a lot of the good stuff, but I've got a couple bits to add as well. Firstly, preparation is key. So before we start writing any entries, we make sure we've got business support for the categories that we're entering. Having senior management endorsement of what you're about to enter into these awards makes it so much easier when you start approaching subject matter experts for graphs, for facts, for figures, and just generally requesting their time. If they know it's coming, that makes things a lot easier. Secondly, if you know you're going to enter a project or initiative into an award category, make sure you've spent some time well before that actually tracking and measuring the progress. You want to be able to prove the worth of your work, and it needs to be tangible. We also seek out quotes from stakeholders and clients from within and outside of the business that really recap these benefits of our work. So effectively, building on what Elizabeth said, it's making your entry really meaty. It's substance over style, rather than just sounding impressive for a moment. Another tip would be to get someone who's actually not involved to read and sense check your entry before you submit it. It's always great to have that peer feedback too. Lastly, for individual entries, or entries that focus on one person, for instance, start the entry process, the drafting process, as early as possible. We found it's actually harder to capture the tone and the essence of a person than it is a project. And there's a lot of to and fro and back and forth with that person to make sure that you've really captured them. For instance, you could ask the person to write the first draft and have your colleagues refine it, but I would allow extra time for any entries that involve an individual person. That's all from me. Thank you, and I'll hand over to Neil.
Thank you, Claire, and thank you to Deloitte for hosting us for this webinar today and organising it. Look, a big thanks to Claire and Elizabeth for coming in and sharing their insights. Extremely valuable, given the experience of both of those individuals in terms of the Deloitte Energy Excellence Awards. So yes, Neil Wembridge, it's me, event organiser and general manager at Freeman Media. We are extremely happy announcing the award categories for this year. You can see them as on the screen now, but I'll just draw your attention to the new category for 2018, which is the Low Carbon Future Award. This award has been introduced really on the back of the growing attention that achieving a lower carbon future is getting in New Zealand and around the world, and we felt it was extremely important to have an avenue for the energy sector to tell their stories about their initiatives, their projects, their undertakings in terms of contributing or planning for a lower carbon future. We know there's a lot of work that goes on. We know that there's a lot of investigation and actual delivering initiatives, and this is now an opportunity for some of these stories to be shared. So we're quite happy and quite anticipating some very interesting stories to come through that category. That said, it is a new category, and you might be wondering whether your initiative it qualifies to be an entry in that category. The best thing that you can do, and this actually goes for all of the categories, would be to give me a call or one of the team here at Freeman Media. We're more than happy to give you our opinion and provide all the guidance that you would need to decide whether your initiative, your project, your undertaking is qualifying and should be encouraged to be putting an entry into that category or potentially one of the other categories as well. So please don't be shy in getting in touch. On the next screen we have our judging panel for 2018. All of these judges have been judges for the Deloitte Energy Excellence Awards before, so they're all very experienced. They come from across the energy sector and a range of other industries and really provide us with that diverse sort of thought and opinion and ability to make some really great decisions around the awards. Moving on to the key dates. The most important dates are the ones that say now, and that is that the entry forms are available. So if you haven't requested the entry pack or any of the entry category forms, please do that by sending an email to myself or Eliza, and we'll send those out to you extremely quickly. The next most important date would be the 21st of May, which is when entries close. You can get your entries to us by email or by USB or hand delivery. Not a problem, we'll accept any form of delivery as long as it's by that date of the 21st of May, so ensure that that's in your diaries. We then move on from there and we will announce the finalists on the 2nd of July. We'll announce the Energy Retailer of the Year finalists on the 25th of July, and then we'll have awards night on the 22nd of August. I know our team at Freeman Media is busy planning a spectacular evening, so that certainly should be one for your diaries. The Cordis Auckland might not be a name that you recognise. It's the Langham Hotel. It is the same venue as last year. They've just rebranded and remodelled the hotel a bit, so that's the venue for this year's awards night. So why enter? Well, there are a number of very, very good reasons why an organisation should enter. I'd almost want to jump to that last bullet point there. It is just so important to tell the story. We're in a privileged position at Freeman Media and Energy News where we get to see an awful lot of what's going on in the energy sector, and we know the incredible initiatives and individuals and teams around New Zealand, and we really do want to encourage you to tell your stories for a number of reasons. It is extremely motivational. it is a great opportunity to recognise and reward your staff, your teams, your individuals. It does help build a profile of your organisation and enables others to get to know you. Demonstrating best practice, it's really important to, even if it's business as usual for you, what you're doing may inspire somebody else to lift their game or to try something different and push the boundaries even further. So absolutely really valuable from a continuous improvement perspective, from perhaps just your own organisation and from a wider industry perspective. And the same with passing on of knowledge and sharing of collective information. There's a really good community aspect to this in terms of the sector talking about what it does and who they are. Finally, how to enter. Well, all of the information that you'll need is available on the website www.energyawards.co.nz. You can email me at neil.wembridge@freemanmedia.co.nz, or you can email Eliza, our events manager. And I would also advocate a phone call with me. I am not a judge, but I do convene the judging panel. I'm very aware of what the judges are looking for. I have a very good insight into that, and also what the categories are designed for, what stories are trying to be brought out by those categories, and often I can assist in shaping an option for telling the story one way or another. So more than happy to provide any assistance that you need. So that's about all I've got to share today. I believe we do have some questions. So we've got some questions that I'll very quickly answer that have come in. These are sort of quite often questions that we get, so hopefully they provide some useful information. First question that we've received is, am I allowed to include an appendix of supplementary information? And the answer to that is yes. Feel free to include whatever information you need to in an appendix to support your entry. I would say that the entry forms provide that guidance as to what the judges are looking for, and the word limits are there to encourage you to tell your story succinctly and within those limits. However, if you need to go beyond those word limits and you need to provide supplementary information, that is not a problem. They will still all be accepted as valid entries. The last question is, should I incorporate images and videos? And that's a wholehearted yes. We quite like the multimedia to be provided as part of an entry. It really does help to tell your story, to bring an entry to life, especially on the personal entries, but also on the projects and initiatives. It makes it real and really enables the judges to get to know the story that you're trying to tell. So I think that's probably enough from me. Thanks for dialing in, and I'm back over to Mike.
Thanks very much, Neil. That's all we got time for, but I just wanted to say from David and myself, thank you very much to Elizabeth Welton, Claire Marshall, and to Neil as well for putting this on. And best of luck with your entries, and we hope to see you there in August. Thank you.